This episode of Rookie Hunter is brought to you by the Wild Sheep Foundation. Become a member, join the Lesson One Club, and attend their annual convention, Sheep Show, Reno, Nevada in 2020. For more information, go to wildsheepfoundation.org. Hey guys, welcome to episode 122 of Rookie Hunter. Today on the show, our good friend Chris Barker. You know that name. Him and Kelly got together while I was chasing polar bears around, I guess. No, I did not get eaten. I'm back in Kelowna and happy to be here. But anyways, these guys got into all kinds of conversations about sheep, goats, One Campfire, Wild Sheep Society BC, Wild Sheep Foundation, all kinds of good stuff. And speaking of sheep, if you haven't done so, I'm just going to keep saying this, head over to wildsheepfoundation.org, become a member, join the Lesson One Club, and come hang out at the Sheep Show in Reno, Nevada 2020. wildsheepfoundation.org. Sitka Gears deals continue. We got a few more days to take advantage of that. Today is Cyber Monday. Head over to sitkagear.com. So I just picked up something new from Sitka. I got the Gravelly Shell. This is in their everyday lineup. It's a 3-layer Gore-Tex shell. And I'm heading to Asia, to Vietnam, and this thing is coming with me just in case we hit some of those crazy rains. But I've been wearing this around in the cold and snow and everything. It's been an awesome jacket. And if you want to see our entire Sitka lineup, head over to theRookieHunter.com. Click on that gear tab. Also, North Arm Knives. Go get yourself a blade, NorthArmKnives.com. All right, let's get in this one. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer. Enjoy episode 122 with our buddy, Chris Barker.
So Chris, how's it going?
Oh, good, Kelly. Yeah, busy at work, and we just sold our house, so we're moving again.
Nice. Your house in the Okanagan Valley?
Yeah, moving back to Vic.
Yeah. Well, you spend a lot of your time in Victoria, right? So that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, it's been a year and a half of commuting back and forth, so
Yep.
It's impacted the time of field a bit too.
Yeah, exactly. And we've tried to get you down in the studio here. This is actually the first time that we've had you. It's kind of a small little space up here, but it's downtown, and it's a good spot. Mike is off traveling again. He's going to Churchill to look at some polar bears, I think, for another project.
Yeah,
he's got projects on projects.
Lucky dog.
Yeah, but it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing those stories. But he left me the keys to the studio, so maybe we can throw a studio party tonight or something.
Yeah, there we go. Well, the bank vault's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Got the built-in gun safe in the bank here.
Yeah, you could put 100 guns in there. But it's nice to have you in the studio, and it's been a while that we did a bit of a touch base in terms of what Wild Sheep Society BC is up to and what Wild Sheep Foundation's up to. But maybe we should just kind of talk about the season a little bit. And I chatted with you a little about what's happened. So how'd 2019 treat you?
It was, again, time restraints. Ended up doing a guided hunt, a mountain goat hunt in the Coast Mountains. So Wild Sheep Society BC had donated a hunt to Midwest. And the way it worked was we had to guide the hunt for the outfitter.
Yep.
So we... myself and Mike Southern, Mike's client was coming in but couldn't make it across the border, so we flew into this high altitude lake, and just unbelievable country, and the weather was spectacular. And I think day 3 we managed to get the fellow on a couple of goats, and there was a really good goat, and that one took over the mountain. The other one decided to come to the bottom of the valley, and we made a play on him, and few hours, interesting, spooked the goat, but I guess we outsmarted the goat because we ended up getting him. But then I had to bring in my mountain climbing skills with no ropes and
Right.
go and retrieve this thing. So that was a little hairy. But
It seems every mountain goat hunt has a little bit of that in it.
yeah, I think it's something about goats and grizzlies, right?
Yeah. So are
Yeah.
you quite experienced in the goat area?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Nice. Maybe we'll have to get you to guide us one day.
I don't know if you guys want me guiding here because it's usually a near death experience every time. So there's
Nice.
I said when I finally harvest a goat with my bow, I'm gonna write a little story about the total goat adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like Mike seems to be hooked on it now, so I have a feeling there's another one in our future. My father-in-law has a nice goat in his basement, and he always tells a story. He has a WinMag 300 WinMag with a 26-inch barrel. So when they were out hiking, I think they were scaling this cliff face and kind of grabbing on with the, face towards the rocks. And he jumped and grabbed onto something else, but the barrel hit the rock and almost pushed him right over.
Yeah.
So he still got a nick in the barrel from that. And every time he looks at it, he just kind of shakes his head.
A little heart palpitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think, you're talking about goat hunting, but I think, compared to sheep hunting, obviously the world that we're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always said goat hunting is harder than sheep hunting. And if you're, we've kind of switched terms a bit on the mounting hunter component.
Yep.
And if you want a true mountain hunt and something that'll challenge you more than sheep, go on a goat hunt, especially here in BC. I mean, I'm assuming Colorado and Wyoming, they'll all be the same. They all live in the same habitat. But
Yep.
you get into those coastal mountains of BC and there's something else to behold, especially when you
Yeah.
start going through Devil's Club and
Yeah.
now you're watching out for grizzly bears and
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we were chatting about that at one point, maybe doing sheep. I was asking you about some sheep areas on more of the coastal side. And you mentioned, I don't know if I'd send you guys in there at this point. Maybe you'll do a couple on the Rocky Mountain side and then get some experience and then go over there.
Yeah. I mean, the sheep country on the Cassiars is not, you get in the right spots, but you still got to come off those. If you land low, you've got to go through that,
Right.
that garbage and those big Sitka spruces. And
Yeah.
But it's all what we live for, right? It's the country
Yeah.
we're in.
Exactly. And then you guys had a meal on the side of the mountain.
Got the goat back and we packed it back down and I'll shoot you a couple of pics to post.
Nice.
But we got back to kind of our base camp. So one good thing about going with Mike, when you go with Mike, he's really organized. So he had all these totes and he had all our meals and we had this big tent that we could set up in. So it was like, a bottle of whiskey,
Nice.
some wine.
Wall tent?
No, just I think it was a bigger Hilleberg.
Oh, okay.
Is what we were using, and the client was using a Stone Glacier,
Okay.
one of the new Stone Glaciers. But yeah, we got back to the lake, and usually after a good pack, you're a little ravenous, so we started carving up some meat, and he had some spice from Minnesota or Wisconsin, wherever he was from, and put it on the back straps and the tenderloin. So we ate a whole back strap and 2 tenderloins in one sitting, and
Wow.
sip some whiskey and enjoyed a good feed of goat.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too chewy. I was kind of surprised. So it was about a
Nice.
4 or 5 year old goat.
Yeah, I mean, I think, judging from I wasn't on the last hunt. Maybe we can get into that too, but Mike and Garrett took a couple nannies, and it sounds like it's extremely hard to, figure out which one is the Billy. And I know they were extremely confident that one was, and it ended up not being. So, yeah, it seems like you need a few hunts in your pocket before you start really being able to tell the difference there. And
Yeah, it's a little bit like black bear hunting. When you look at bears and you think, oh yeah, that's a really good bear, and then you pull the trigger and you walk up, and not there's a disappointment in harvesting an animal, but until you've seen a few, it's really hard to judge the size because you're trying to judge the body and there's nothing to reference to it. And the same with a goat. You're looking at those. Some of those nannies are really tricky.
Yeah.
You're 300 or 400 yards away and you spot and scope. Do we make a play on this one? Yeah, it looks like a Billy. And then you don't really realize until you've actually harvested in that. I mean, the goats we were on this year, it was, it becomes more where they live, I think. I don't even think we saw any nannies. They
Interesting.
were mostly billies. So we kind of found that one mountain where the billies were hanging. Like there was
Yep.
one up this way, and then there was 2 or 3 goats together. And I was a little concerned. Usually when you see 2 or 3, and then one took off one way, and then these 2 kind of hung out for a few hours. And then the size disproportion was
Mm.
it was unbelievable. Like the big long nose,
Hmm.
big horns, body size twice as big as the goat we harvested.
Wow.
And I was like, holy smokes. And, the client harvested really good, respectable, I think it was 8.25 inch goat.
Wow.
So who knows how big the other one was, but
Hmm.
they kind of hung up, but then they split off too, right? So one went over the mountain, one went this way. It's like, okay, then.
Mm.
But like I said, we had a good opportunity to look at the horns for a long time.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's a lot of analytical stuff that
Yeah.
that waiting game before you actually
Yep.
go make your stock.
A lot of time, and it might not even get to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Yep.
Due diligence, I guess,
Yeah.
is a good way to put it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So when you went up for this hunt, I understand there was a bit of a intersection between you guys going on this hunt and Mike going on another hunt. So,
Yeah.
this was the sheep hunt he was going on. How'd that all play out?
So we actually flew out. We were kind of watching the weather. So we'd harvested this goat on the Tuesday, and we reached out to the pilot, and he goes, he was going to try and pick us up Thursday, and it was too windy to fly into the lake we were in, and I wasn't going to argue with him because there's only a few feet from the rocks where we had to fly out. So we ended up flying out on the Friday, and I'd been talking to Mike a little bit, and so, when you're passing through Smithers, because we were in Smithers, we had to drop the client off in Smithers so he could fly back east. And
Mhm.
I wasn't quite sure if Mike was coming up on the Friday, and we didn't leave Smithers till Friday night. And then Saturday morning, I got a call from Mike. It goes, "You guys here?" So we kind of just crossed path.
Yeah.
And then that was the day I think Mike was traveling to Deese, and that's when the weather changed. So it's like
Yeah.
we were kind of happy we got out because I think Mike was grounded for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, they were stuck there. I guess it's better he was stuck before that happened or during than
Yeah.
if they were out in the mountains. But
Yeah, you kind of heard a few horror stories with the snow and everybody getting wet because it was a good 2 week of crappy weather up north,
Yep.
right? I was reading one, somebody had harvested a sheep and they just kind of got out. They were soaked, and
Oh, wow.
so yeah, it's something you kind of get in that, and that's what Mike said. He goes, "We don't want to be going into September,
Yep.
in this area because you can get socked in for 4 or 5 days."
Mm.
If the system's rolling well. Obviously, with this fall, that chunk of bad weather is kind of what we had because the last 2 weeks have been exceptional.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess you can't predict that. We saw the forecast changing kind of as we were nearing up on the trip, and the gear list started changing a little bit, and we started bringing the biggest puffy we had, and I ended up not going, but everybody knows that story. So I ended up going on this other adventure, but I was following pretty hard with the inReach, and
Yeah.
I wanted to know what was happening. And so, yeah, I think we got another hunt in our future. We'll have to decide what that looks like. I don't know if it'll be plane again. Maybe we'll take a boat this time, or horses or something like that.
Yeah.
But lots of planning. Now we're back in planning mode.
That's the best part.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, planning mode takes 12 months, but
I think that's what accumulates in the excitement. Like when you finally get to go to that trip and you've put all your thought process in, this is where we're going, this is how we're going,
Yeah.
this is the gear we need to take.
Mhm.
And I think you guys are not hat at it anymore. So you kind of just, you still go through that. I mean, I'm terrible. Like I know what I need to take and I just put it in my pack.
Right.
I don't, everybody spreads it out and stuff, and I'm really bad that way. But like I said, Mike's really organized. So I know I've got enough essentials to survive.
Yeah.
But he's got the luxury component, so
right.
I kind of cheat a bit.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's probably easier for you guys to pack now than it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky to have a lot of the gear and a lot of the stuff that is lightweight. And, Mike, Rookie Hunter Mike is, he's all about hiking as far as you possibly can. So we got to make sure we're packing smart. So, yeah, it's fun. I like doing all that, crossing lists, and I end up with like a dozen packing lists by the end of it, and they're all got marks all over them, and overcomplicating things.
Yeah, I'm probably a bit like Mike as well. I got to see what's on the other side of that mountain.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter how steep or ugly it is. Okay, we're going over to check it out.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's all fun.
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
Congratulations too, by the way, on
Yeah, thanks.
becoming a dad.
Thank
That's
you.
Pretty exciting.
It is exciting. It's really fun. We were just, even this morning, got up, and he's always in a good mood in the mornings and just all smiles. My parents are up for the weekend too, so they're loving it. But yeah,
It's already started.
Doesn't get old.
He's getting spoiled by the grandparents.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing Bree and I were talking about, is like he's a only child right now, so got to watch the spoiledness, because he's going to be spoiled to death, I think. So we're going to have to watch that one.
Yeah. Well, you get him hooked up with Yankees kids, you'll be all right.
Exactly. But yeah, they're just up the street, a little older. He's actually, well, we did a podcast. He was talking about getting his kids into hunting and stuff, and they're around 5 years old. So
yeah,
he's kind of right at that mark. I've got some time, but yeah, we were taking him for hikes and stuff when he was 2 weeks old, and we had him strapped on to her chest there, and yeah, it's all fun.
Yeah, I was rooting through some old pictures there, I guess earlier this year, but we used to do a lot of 3D archery shoots, and then my daughter, we were in archery shooting Golden, and I've got a backpack on, backing around. She must have been 7 months old, but
nice.
Had her in the backpack going through the archery shoot.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's funny. She's been exposed to it and just not had that opportunity. She wants to go. She talks about it. So now I just got to find the time to go. And she's 24 now, I think.
Oh, yeah.
24, 25.
And she's still into it?
She gets this concept. She grew up with it.
Yeah.
She grew up with me hunting, and took her on a few trips when she was younger, and but never just kind of got that. She's got her core and all that. So, so it's just a matter of,
cool.
I've got to motivate her into doing it.
Yeah. It's really, I guess what I've learned is it's a lifestyle. From a non-hunting perspective, sometimes it's like, they're just out there pulling triggers, but it's all about the lifestyle. I feel like it keeps you mentally healthy. You kind of realize who you are out there, and it keeps you fit too. Keeps you motivated to get outside. And I mean, the stuff you see, I don't know. I wouldn't go back. You know, we started 5 years ago, but I would never go back.
No.
But it's just, and I mean, we were talking about my buddy Kyle getting his deer on the last episode, and not even pulling the trigger. I would do that all year, just being there with people and letting them pull triggers. And you know, I don't mind getting a little meat on the side.
The meat's a good part.
But it's just about being out there, and like all those pictures with kids and just different peaks that you're on and all these things. Like that's kind of the trophy at the end of the day. Yeah.
I always find that, good question for Mike when you're talking to him, but I always find after a trip, especially one that's over 7 days, it really I found that it put life in perspective for me. And one thing that I figured out early, because we used to do the horse trips for 2 weeks.
Yep.
And we'd be removed. And I can remember 9/11, we didn't even know about it. Like people say, where were you in 9/11? I was in the mountains. But it did put this thing in perspective, and I realized a long time ago that the world will not stop.
Yeah.
Whether I'm there or not. Yep. I can remove myself for that 2-week period, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
So you can put your life in perspective for where you're going. But I was going to circle back to the comment about commonalities, kind of down to one campfire vein is, you talked about pulling the trigger, but if we start to look at commonalities between people that use the outdoors, if we started highlighting all the similarities between somebody that just likes to hike, no different than us, or somebody that wants to mountain bike, or somebody that's actually mountain climbing,
or taking pictures of animals, which is like half of what I'm doing out there anyways.
Yeah. Wildlife viewing, like you say, taking pictures, but just being out there. Like a lot of people want to be outside in nature, and their components are very similar, if not all of them. There's only one component that we change between those other people that may be sitting on the fence or questioning hunting, is the fact that we take a life.
Yeah.
Now, how you evaluate that component, I think, comes down into an individual. But I think the individual component is that if we're going to harvest a life, I feel there's a ton more respect there. than somebody going to the grocery store. And I mean, we've all seen these arguments about going to
Yeah.
the grocery store and people being removed from that component. And I think it puts, again, perspective on the value of a life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think hunters have, for the majority of us, have way more respect for whether it's a farm animal or whether it's
Yeah.
a harvested animal, or we understand where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
We do a really terrible job of explaining that. And I know we've touched on that when we started the podcast, but that's, that one campfire vein. And I think if we start talking to people about similarities between what they do in the outdoors and what we do in the outdoors, I think that we'll find a lot of common ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to move us towards a thing where I come back to this one original question I always ask is, do people want wildlife on the landscape? And if it's yes, guess what? This is what we have to do for wildlife management. And I kind of go down a political vein. I'm on a big rant now. But
well, I can loop something in there too, because I talk about a lot of this stuff when I go to work. Just I can't help but if we're on break or at lunch or something, like people want to know, oh, how's your hunt or whatever. So just through the last few years of that and the people that are on my team, and there's one girl that works in the office, and her husband are very cognizant of like where their food comes from, and they went straight vegan, and someone that I'd never thought would consider hunting, because every time I started talking about these stories, I always felt like I feel like I'm getting judgment from this side of the room. You know what I mean? Like,
or you monitor your story a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it was kind of like, you're going on another hunting trip, and like, but the other day, it was actually only like 2 weeks ago, she said, we've been thinking about maybe getting back into eating some meat, but we want to make sure we take it ourselves. So like, how would I go about doing that? And I said, well, you got to take your core. Maybe you start out with like just grouse hunting or something.
Listen to the Rookie Hunter podcast.
Yeah, start listening to the Rookie Hunter podcast. And then, talking about hares, and she was interested in all this small game. So, it just blew my mind that, because I remember where that conversation was a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So I feel like with most people, even the, vegans, and they're not that far away from appreciating that aspect. I think you're right, though. We don't do a good job of explaining it in the first place. And I feel what I try to do is not really similar to like what Mark Hall said on his podcast with us. I don't really try to win anyone over. I just try to let them understand why I do it. Yeah. And then I feel like in the long run, a lot of them kind of end up turning around to it. Not necessarily start hunting, but...
No, but there's two components to it, Mike. First off, it's a personal relationship.
Yeah.
And they know you.
Yeah.
And there's there's probably a trust level that when you're explaining your experiences,
mm-hmm.
they're starting to live vicariously through your experiences. And it's like, okay, we maybe want to be part of that, whether it's, the small game component or just hearing about how the trip went and, the scenery and all that other stuff. So the trouble is we can't have one-on-one experience with the majority of people that we need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, you've made a difference because I've followed some of your experiences. I love that little video you did for one campfire. That was excellent.
The one that spooked me because I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, that one.
It took so long to get it posted. I didn't know who it was, and I realized it was myself. Doppelganger.
Yeah, but no, so I think those things, I've talked to a bunch of different people, and I always go back to my kids. I still have the trophy room, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the heads, but my kids hate every one of those animals. But when their friends came over, the first room they would go into was my trophy room.
Yeah.
My ex-wife used to call it the dead room.
Yeah.
Right. So the kids started calling it that, but they all went in there and they could touch the hides. They could look at the animals. And they go watch TV in there. They go play games. They'd have sleepovers in there.
Yeah.
And not one of those kids, I think one of Nicole's best friends, her dad hunted, but none of them came from a hunting background.
Right.
So it's a matter of what they were exposed to, and they hadn't gone through that, I guess, that old anti-hunting rhetoric, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
It was just an open-minded thing. So I think, like you're saying, having those conversations, but how do we have those personal conversations on a larger scale?
Well, maybe we should kind of flip into that with WSSBC,
Yeah.
Wild Sheep Society of BC. Well, so the Hunter Heritage Program, I guess, just for folks that aren't aware of that, maybe we could touch on that project.
Yeah, so we so WSSBC, there was a committee formed. It's called our Hunter Heritage Committee, and they formed that committee, and that led into the development of One Campfire. So One Campfire has posted, I think, 3 videos are out now, and 4 or 5 podcasts. I think there's 4 out right now that Mike's produced. And I think the last one, the caribou, I really enjoyed the caribou one.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember his name, but the expert in caribou.
Yeah.
Very interesting to listen to.
Is it Rod?
I can double check here.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting guy. And obviously he's been working with caribou and
for his life,
yeah.
his passion, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, so that whole gamut of how the outreach to, part of what hunters are about and what we do for conservation. And, I can really speak from my own experience around the conservation component, because I've really not hunted for the last 6 or 7 years since I've been on the board of WSF. The time commitment to WSF and WSSBC, something had to be sacrificed, and it was the time of field. But that giving back component, we'll jump into that when we get into projects and where my passion lies. But that's the cumulative part of all that that's put that together. So One Campfire, we've got I should know the name of this. We've got a pub night in Victoria.
Oh yeah, like campfire sessions, I think.
Campfire sessions, yeah.
Yeah, that's
December 1st.
Next month, yeah.
Yeah, so December 1st at Log House Pub. I think I just talked to Kyle yesterday. He said there's only, I think they were selling 50 or 65 seats. There's only 23 seats left. So if anybody's interested in joining us in Victoria on December 1st at Log House Pub, get a hold of Kyle, get your tickets. It's going to be a live podcast. I believe Adam's going to be there, or Nolan.
Nice. From
Beyond the Kill. Perry Wolf's going to be joining us. She's the Wild Sheep Foundation Vice Chair.
Okay.
And, I guess moving into that, so that pub night should be pretty eye-opening. And this is kind of geared a little more to the education of hunters, not really the component of the non-hunting public, which we've been targeting with all our media component, our social media components. And I think the scope is definitely going to broaden because of Wild Sheep Foundation involvement, which is really exciting. The board of WSF approved $100,000 to go into the budget for One Campfire. So not only have Wild Sheep Society of BC members contributed huge, WSF believes in where we're going and the need for that educational component, and what Shane Mahoney's doing with compiling all the data around what the biomass is and the weight of harvested animals. And I think that whole tie-in component will make sense for a lot of people once it comes to fruition. So
yeah, that's awesome. Victoria is a great place to have that. It's too bad we weren't doing this podcast from the Phillips Brewery where we met last.
Yeah, that was last meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, the Wild Sheep Foundation. It's nice to hear that there's so much resources coming back into BC. I'm always surprised, just whether it's Wild Sheep Society BC or the WSF, how much that group does, or those groups do, with relatively small membership groups.
Yeah,
like the numbers are staggering.
Yeah, I think we'll dive into that real quick. I just want to make one announcement. It's a bit of a sad announcement, but Wild Sheep Foundation lost one of our family members last weekend. One of the great hunter conservationists that I've had the pleasure to meet, but Ron Carey passed away last Sunday in a car accident in the UK, and his wife Billy was in the car, and as far as I know, she's recovering in hospital. But
wow,
from the sheep community side of things, it's truly a tragic event. Ron was so passionate and involved with WSF, but believed in the mission. And Ron was fortunate enough to hunt all over the world and harvest sheep that I never knew existed. But Ron funded the Lesson 1 hunt for new hunters coming in, the Dall sheep. Both Billy and himself funded that. He was on the board for 9 years. Just
Wow.
a truly involved WSF member, and so it's a great loss for WSF family and any sheep or chapter and affiliate.
Yeah. Yeah. That puts things in perspective too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Condolences from the Rookie Hunter crew as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my condolences go out to Billy and the family. And like I said, Ron was a gentleman that had some positive in him. He definitely influenced the board. He definitely influenced the way I thought about things and how I interacted. But yeah,
Cool.
really good guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember here if we've met him down at the sheep show at all. I know whenever we go down there with you, you kind of very good at introducing us to people, and sometimes there's too many to note. But yeah, it sounds like he did a lot for the foundation, and it sounds like he's going to be missed.
Yeah, but moving into the positive stuff, like I said, we always talk about collaborations and
Yep.
WSF. They have their project intakes, and by the end of July. But there was a lot of projects that came from BC and a lot of joint projects with WSS BC. But WSF's putting over $140,000 US into BC this year
Yeah, that's crazy.
in 1 year. And then, like you said, you talk about the money that we're putting on the ground.
Yep.
I think we just approved $75,000 the other night for projects. So I think we're over $200,000 for this year. So
Wow.
potentially we'll see. It may be a bit high, but I think we're going to be close to that $500,000 mark for
Yep.
money on the ground for sheep within the province
That's awesome.
between this year. And some of it overlaps fiscal, but
Mhm.
yeah, and that's my intimate knowledge is because I'm the project chair for WSSBC. So,
Yep.
And it comes back to having those relationships with our regional bios and being able to suggest ideas to them and then let them digest and run with it, or vice versa. They'll come and say, we want to do this. And we've got sheep projects in every corner with every region of the province that's got sheep. We're doing a project right now.
Cool. Lots of burns and cutting and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I usually do this on our committee calls, so I'll start by region. So I usually I start with Region 3.
Yeah, let's let people know what's going on.
So Region 3, we had started actually last year's convention, or the convention before, sorry, with Chris Proctor. Had a dialogue with him about actually doing some disease assessments and some sampling on the Fraser River in Region 3. And I talked to Chris quite a bit about it, and we finally got to fruition. Jeremy Oyette, the sheep separation program coordinator, kind of wrote the project up. We kind of cobbled it together that first year, and we got it to work between WSSBC funding, Jurassic Classic funding, and we all know about Jurassic Classic, and the two partners there, and then a really unique opportunity from Midwest chapter of Wild Sheep Foundation, Nick Negrini and his board. They were looking for projects, so they boarded on. So there's the three main funding partners that got that project off the ground. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ben Bearcroft from Canadian Wildlife Capture. Ben did all the wildlife captures.
Yep.
And we had the money for the helicopter, but Ben stepped up in a huge way and gave us a really considerable amount off his helicopter bill because he believed in the direction we were going and what we were doing. So, that was started that project in Region 3. So we did the sampling, got the results back. There's MOV positive sheep on both sides of the Fraser River. A lot of those sheep are interconnected. So we want to know the prevalence. So there's a follow-up project this year that's just in development. Well, it's not in development. It should actually hit the ground in February, March. They're going to do some more sampling and start looking at where we think the MOV started and sample those sheep and just get a larger scale. So they want to sample about 90 more sheep.
Okay.
And then kind of just go into some nuances of around what we're going to do to manage that. So that's happening in Region 3. And then in Chasm, there's a program, and obviously we're aware of the Chasm. There was over 100 sheep, and I think there's 15 left. We've got 6 collars out there. So we've got some really good habitat range usage information. But the prevalence of MOLE, so zero lamb recruitment.
Which region?
That's in Region 3 as well.
Oh, okay.
It's just kind of west of Clinton or east of Clinton.
Yep.
Northeast of Clinton, I guess. So that project's going to look at sampling those sheep as well and potentially removing some of those sheep if there are, those ones that are really still producing MOV,
Yeah.
which we still feel is probably going to be there because of the actual prevalence of lamb and zero lamb recruitment for the last few years. So
Right.
at some point we need to do something, whether we put new sheep, before we put new sheep in, we need to make sure it's MOV free or if we can. So there's some nuances around that of what we can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move into Region 5, and Region 5 has been a really, really tough one to do anything with over the last few years. But this year, with the support of Region 3, we're actually going to do the same thing at the disease assessment in Region 5 on both sides of the Fraser River. So they're going to capture and collar 30 sheep. We're going to put 20 collars out. And that was one of the projects the board approved, was to purchase the collars for I think it was just over 20,000 for the purchase of the collars of that project. And then we're using the same partners again, Jurassic Classic, WSSBC, and we've got a request into Midwest to see if they want to partner on that project as well again. So it'll be the same. And then Ben is hopefully going to do the captures, and Chris Proctor will probably be doing the net gunning. So
are there, do they collar rams and ewes, or is it?
They color a bit of both. So they they don't do if there's a herd, they don't do a lot of collars in one herd. They want to get a broader scope because we want to see the connectivity. We want to see that habitat and range usage information.
Yep.
I kind of always look at this as a building block. First out, find out what we've got for disease. If there is no disease present, then we're moving into, habitat improvement. With the collar data, we can be specifically targeting those areas that the sheep are using the most.
Yeah. Micro areas.
Yeah, and then expand that area out, right? So then what that does is that gives us probably 10 years of projects on habitat.
Yeah.
Do we have any predation issues? Is it, once you start to sample that, you can body condition you can look at. So like the sheep in the Fraser, the body condition was really good. So it gives us a lot of information that we can actually base moving forward. And the reason that the Fraser, like Region 3 and 5, they're kind of interconnected. So basically I always take it from Lillooet to Williams Lake. That's all California Bighorn sheep range historic.
Okay.
And the sheep numbers used to be, I always guessed they were around 4,000. I think we're down about 1,500 now. So back in the day, the churn used to have a population on the flats of about 400 sheep to 500 sheep that live there. And then there was a migratory herd that used to migrate down. Migratory herd's down to about 20 sheep.
Yikes.
So a lot of drastic changes have occurred, and we feel it's probably a bunch of stuff, habitat, predation, disease, just accumulation of everything working against those sheep.
Yep. So
if there's ever anything long lasting that we could do to have a positive impact, would we rebuild that population? And the significance of that population is there was probably 50, I'm guessing around 50 transplants to the U.S. So basically, we repopulated most of the U.S. states with California Bighorns came from the Fraser River sheep.
Okay. We might have to do some reverse populating.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not good to hear that population isn't doing as well, but it's good to hear that there's focus on it.
Yeah, and it's pretty exciting because I think the opportunity and one of the things that's in early development, and a really good conversation with Bruce Ambler about this and Chris Proctor about doing like we do the Spencer's Bridge sheep count.
Yep.
There's an opportunity that we can probably do a sheep count, lamb count on the Fraser in a certain area where we're going to look at and just kind of monitor those lambs. So probably once we get, I've got to make a few more phone calls, but probably on a weekend basis, there's going to be an opportunity that for people can go out camp. We'll kind of give you the location and kind of just watch those lambs. And once they're on the ground, starting probably mid-April to end of April, we want to monitor that all the way to the end of June.
Okay.
So the first initial sheep count, lamb count, we'll probably try and really have a good, barbecue and
nice
kind of a get together and do it that way. And then, like I said, it's a great way for people to be involved. But it's also a great way to reach out to non-hunting community to show us what we're doing for conservation of wild sheep, and let's invite some of those people that want to view wildlife, and we'll show you this is where we're going to see some sheep.
Yeah.
Here's a great opportunity. You want to get some pictures, and let's start to bring those people into our fold and say, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. It's not so we can kill more stuff. It's to make sure that population is stable or increasing, the habitat's in good shape. And if your kids want to come and view those sheep, they've got the opportunity. If your kid wants to come and potentially have the opportunity to hunt one of those sheep, they may have that opportunity.
Yeah. It's such a good example, the whole species, because the opportunity is like relatively limited. It's especially, very limited in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that are still, the resources that are still going into it, even though they know it might be 10 years, 20 years before or maybe they just never get a sheep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to how many members that we have that are passionate. You touched on it earlier, Kelly, was for the small number of people. I think Wild Sheep Society BC membership we should hit 1,000 members before our convention this year.
Yep.
Well, 4 years ago, we were 350. So we've seen a massive increase of our membership. And I think a lot of it is to what we're doing on the ground and people buying into that. So I think if we extend that outreach, there's a huge opportunity. But, WS, or Wild Sheep Foundation membership is just about 8,000.
Right.
And you talk about dollars generated from small memberships. We're with all our raffles and our conventions and we'll put, I think we're close to $230,000 on the ground this year, just from 1,000 members.
Yep.
WSS, or Wild Sheep Foundation, for 8,000 members, potentially, I think it's right around 2.4 million. So the dollars that these small conservation hunting organizations are generating and actually putting on the landscape is huge.
Yeah.
And, I always kind of, not that I want to beat up on our people that are kind of against us, but you look at Raincoast and what they generate, none of that money actually really goes on the ground. They're buying guide outfitting territories to stop hunting from non-resident, from resident hunters.
Yep.
Or non-resident, sorry, but the resident hunters can still there. They're just buying the tenure up to eliminate that component. But so you haven't protected the habitat.
No.
You haven't done anything to improve the habitat. You're removing science-based wildlife management out of the equation. That concerns me more than anything.
And then do they have boots on the ground after that?
Yeah.
Whereas, as far as having boots on the ground, the outfitters and the hunters and, they're feeding a lot of information back as well. So I don't know what happens after they buy that land. It just sits there, nothing. I guess the residents would be going in there still.
The residents still go in there and they do the bear viewing. That's a big component, is the bear viewing component, which is, and I've got nothing against the bear viewing industry.
Yeah.
I feel that both can exist on the landscape if it's managed correctly. We don't hunt where people are wanting to look at bears per se.
Yeah.
We're not hunting bears right now, but
it is pretty amazing viewing bears for sure.
Yeah.
In the wild.
Yeah. How many bears do we see when we're out hunting, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we're out there trying to shoot every last bear that's out there, right?
No.
So, but
yeah.
Anyways, we digressed a bit. Then we went down a bit of a rabbit hole.
Well, we went to Region 3. We went to Region 5.
Yeah.
Are you guys hanging out in Region 4 at all? Doing anything there? Because, I'm originally from Region 4. Grew up there, and, the general rhetoric that I hear is, mule deer are not doing well, and moose aren't doing well, and elk are doing okay in some areas. But I hear a lot of stories from previous generations of things were awesome in Region 4, and now they're kind of declining. And I wonder if that's the same story with the sheep, or if they've been safe from that.
It's there's a few nuances. I think there's some population. I think generally it's stable. There's some populations on the west side of the Elk Valley that have seen a decline, and we're not really sure why. And we'll delve into that because we are doing some projects in Region 4. So, but just to go back to your comment, there used to be elk, moose, deer, It was like the Serengeti over there.
Yeah.
And to where it's at right now, it's not a happy place.
Yeah.
And we can go down that component maybe at the end about the political
That could probably
component.
be a whole other podcast.
Yeah. But there was some concern over the Bull River sheep. The numbers are down a bit, but there was some early snow, and I think those sheep, this is just my own opinion, and I'm not a bio, but
Mhm.
I think that early snow a few years ago, those sheep didn't make it back to their winter range, and they just wintered somewhere else and summered somewhere else. Because we saw a drastic decline from like 160 sheep down to 45.
Mm.
So there was alarm bells going off. Fortunately, we'd done some sampling for MOV, and all the sheep there were MOV negative. So we knew we didn't have a disease event. And I figured it was, my original thought is that we'd lost those sheep from the winter, but this year the population kind of bounced back to that 145 number.
Okay, so maybe they just moved for a temporary period.
Yeah,
That's good news.
They've been adapting for a while.
Yep.
But I think there's opportunities again. There's the big thing in the Kootenays right now, and I'll delve into the projects we're doing there, but is invasive weeds.
Mm.
Invasive weeds, predators, habitat, right?
Yep.
Invasive weeds have kind of taken over. Bull Mountain, for instance, on the lower elevations, there's a lot of invasive weeds. The Elk Valley has been targeted. That's a place that we can actually, if we jump on this right now, we could probably potentially reverse that and then come out. But, like Wigwam Flats, Regional Bio, Irene Teskey has been doing invasive weed management in that area for the last, I want to say 12, 15 years, Kelly, on a small thing, just trying to figure out what works.
Yeah.
And just trying to control it. But you've got cattle, you've got ATVs, and I may get the ATVs jumping down my back about this, but their focus when they're ripping around, whether it's recreational or hunting, you're spreading invasive weeds, right? So you need to be aware of what you're doing. Stay on those main trails and don't be wandering off in the boonies and ripping it up. So
yeah, it's a good point.
But yeah, so coming back to projects, so we funded the initial, and again, collaboration, Sparwood, Rod and Gun Club, Elkford, BH. Oh, I always screw it up. BHA.
Yeah.
They just jumped on. So we're funding, Wild Sheep Society of BC funded the initial, I guess not really polygons, but it's a IPMP. So it's a management plan for invasive plants.
Oh, okay.
So we've got the people in place. They put in a bunch of applications to Columbia Basin, FWP, Fish Wildlife Compensation Program. All these acronyms, I start mixing them up. And HCTF.
Yeah.
For a considerable amount of money to actually do some invasive weed management in the Elk Valley.
Mm.
So that's a really cool project. That's it's going to be a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
The initial component to drive the plan was probably around 12.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, it's just it's investing in the plan component. Everybody always wants to do the habitat.
Right.
They want the on the ground stuff. But if you need the plan to be able to get the money to do the on the ground, so we started looking at how we make sure that those trigger mechanisms are in place to trigger that plan, get that done on the ground, because it's all about what we can get on the ground. So for a small investment, we can have a larger impact. So
many factors. If it's not weeds, it's ATVs. If it's not ATVs, it's domestic farmer sheep, and if it's not that, it's the weather that year, and then it just goes on and on.
But 3 of the 4 you mentioned are all
controllable.
Yeah, they're all done by us.
Cool.
So it's, again, we need to be able to, we're going to have to give up something in order to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think as long as people realize that, and they've got to give it this attitude that, whether LEH comes in or whatever it may be, it's short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah.
And we need to remember that. But we did another, there's another project we were part of last year. We're trying to get it off. It was a burn on Bull Mountain. It was a high elevation burn for Summer Range.
Okay.
And just due to conditions, it didn't go off. So I think it's a fall burn for the following year. But again, we had money, and again, collaboration. We had the outfitter in that area donated a cougar hunt.
Yep.
They sold a cougar hunt at Eastern Wild Sheep Foundation. They actually donated extra money on top of what the hunt sold for. So we actually had an investment back in, and that went right on the ground this year to invasive weed control. So it actually sprayed the ground, and then WSSBC kicked some money at it as well. So, and what we're finding is you've got to do that weed treatment prior to doing a burn. Because if you burn first, you can actually make the weed component better because it'll grow quicker than native species.
Right. Was that like a predetermined lesson, or was it through experience?
I think Irene's learned it through experience that,
Yeah.
we're seeing, if you've got cheatgrass, if you have a fire, cheatgrass can actually take over the range. There's some cool stuff coming out of Montana with the fertilizer that may be able to be detrimental to cheatgrass and actually let the normal bunch grass grow back.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's Bull Mountain. And then the final one we've done over in Region 4 is we just funded this the other day was, Elkford Sparwood again, Sparwood Fish and Game Club hired Kim Poole to put a project together and kind of following along the same lines, disease assessment, habitat usage, predation.
Mm-hmm.
And their project has just gone in. It's gone in HCTF. They actually won't get on the ground until the following year because of HCTF funding, but WSSBC approved the funding for the collar purchase, which will be out of next year's fiscal. So make sure you guys support all our raffles and conventions and stuff. We'll get into those in a bit, but
good prizes on those.
Yeah.
But okay, well, let's.
So that's that's another really cool project that's going to have really positive, but it'll lead into a 4 or 5, 10-year opportunity there.
Right.
In Region 4. So
Nice.
we finally got some stuff going in Region 4 that's is pretty exciting for sheep. And then we've got our Golden project too.
Okay.
MOT is redoing the highway coming out of Golden
Mm.
in the Kicking Horse Pass. So we've got some collars on the ground there, and it's given us some pre-construction usage of range, and
Nice.
it's not great because the sheep are right there on the highway.
Yep.
But-
That's a pretty intense piece of highway.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah, so I mean, nobody really knows where those sheep showed up from, but there used to be a population of about 50, and I think it's down around 20. But we want to, and that's one that I kind of always come back to. It's important that population stays there. It's got important wildlife viewing opportunities. So population, we as hunters are never going to be able to hunt.
Similar to nearby here across on the west side.
Yeah, potentially that may change that one.
Oh,
but,
okay.
um,
We see them all the time. Sometimes I just drive over there just to go snap some pictures and look at them. They're
that's
pretty
great,
cool.
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're passing through that chunk of highway, if there's a pullout or whatever, and you can see some sheep, there's a great opportunity for the non-hunting public
Mhm.
to go and view wild sheep without having to climb the mountain.
You don't even have to get out of your car.
No, no. So if you see any of those collared sheep going through there, that's why they got collars on there. Just
Okay.
it's pre-construction monitoring going on. So
Nice. That's a cool concept.
yeah,
Get
so,
ahead of it.
yeah, and then we can. There's a couple of things that we can come out that we can hopefully help highways do their blasts to where the sheep are.
Yep.
Make sure they're not doing any major blasts in lambing time, or they're not blasting where the lambing grounds are.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at expanding that habitat after highways is in. And that's the big one, right? We need highways to step up, and it's not you're
Mhm.
just building the budget to get the highway through. You better start putting something back on the ground for wildlife.
Mhm.
Because again, it's man having the impact.
Yeah.
And that comes back to that political change that we need to advocate for.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not going to go in that rabbit hole yet. But
Well, I think overall, like the kind of the things you guys are doing for sheep, it'd be excellent to see this at a grand scale just for everything in BC.
Yeah.
All these species. And Mike and I say it almost every episode, but like it might be a good start to just throw our license fees towards it.
Yeah.
That seems the obvious thing. But yeah, it's nice to see all these projects. What if we move up north, like Region 7? I'm always curious about that because it's a massive region. So I don't know if a region like that takes a little less attention because maybe it's much more wild, or if you actually have to spend more attention.
It's been a tough one to do anything up in Region 7, unfortunately. We've been trying to So the biggest benefit for wildlife in Region 7, and I was just going to flip back to that one comment, Kelly, about for all species. What people need to remember is what we do for sheep is really going to have a positive effect for all other species.
Yeah,
Mule
true.
deer, elk, moose.
Yep.
So if we take sheep on a grand scale, if we do a burn, there's benefits to birds, other endangered species, whatever that may be. So people need to remember that. So if you think you're not a sheep hunter, but you want to do something to help, join up as a member.
Yeah.
Whether it's Wild Sheep Society of BC or Wild Sheep Foundation.
Yep.
Because if we're getting those dollars on the ground, you may not be a sheep hunter, but it's gonna help you with your mule deer or your elk or whatever that species may be. So
invasive weeds
or invasive weeds. Yeah, exactly.
Example,
right.
Yeah.
But in Region 7, it's for a long time the outfitters used to burn vast amounts of country off, and they just opened up the grasslands for elk, moose, sheep. But they've cut back on the burns, and it's been a real struggle. And the district manager up there doesn't want to burn, and some of the reasons just do not make sense to me whatsoever in regards to the fact that we don't want to do burns because there's too many roads from infrastructure. And I'm thinking that's all the more reason we should be doing something to help wildlife. If we've got logging roads or mining roads or whatever, oil and gas exploration. First off, if you go in and explore, it should be rehabilitated when you come out. That should be a component of your license.
Yeah.
And then we can look at these burns. But if you're telling us you're not going to allow us to burn because there's too much infrastructure in the area, I think you're mismanaging your area.
Right. It's like you got to flip that equation around.
It should be flipped around in a big way, right?
Yeah.
But we've just approved some funding up there. So this is all part of that big pot of funding. So any money at our Northern Convention is raised stays in the North. We don't bring any of that money south. We leave that pot of money up there to specifically focus on thin horn sheep. And we're starting to get some of that on the ground. So it's pretty exciting. So we've started off with our southernmost population of stone sheep, Dunlevy and Butler Ridge.
Okay.
We're going to do a disease assessment in there this winter, get some colors on, same thing, habitat usage, test those sheep. There is some sheep and goats that are close to that population, and we want to make sure we haven't had contact. And then we can look at whether we can do habitat improvement in that area. So that's a really cool project. Again, support from WSF, North Peace Rod and Gun Club, Wild Sheep Society of BC, HCTF, Fish and Wildlife Compensation Program. So you can see where we really reached out and made our fingers go into these pots to actually achieve some positive stuff.
It's relationships.
Totally is.
Yeah.
And then we've just approved a kind of in the Toshodi area, a culmination of burn plans to be rewritten and resubmitted for burning sheep-specific habitat.
Okay.
So we're obviously caribou have a big influence on what we can and can't do on the landscape. So we're really looking at those stone sheep components.
Nice.
And then that's basically the bulk of what we can do in Region 7. And then we flip into Region 6. Bill Jex just sure if he's in his final year, but he's been doing health monitoring and health herd assessments in Region 6, especially around that Jade Boulder area. And again, everything's come back negative, so no movie. So
Nice.
that was good news.
Bonus.
And then obviously the Tahltan First Nations, they were looking at whether ATV usage on a trail was stopping those sheep from migrating back across. So that project is coming to a culmination. So we should be able to get some good information about, again, do ATVs impact how those sheep use their range? And do we need to make some changes? One really cool project that we're trying to do up there, because obviously we looked at burns, whether it would be impact, but because it's such a harder landscape.
Yeah. Now this is more coastal, right?
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know if it's a higher elevation or if they don't get the same, I think they're just younger mountains. So they're a lot more rocky. There's not as much vegetation. So what vegetation is there? Do you want to burn it off, or is it going to have a negative impact if we do burn it off? So Bill Jex came up out with a really unique idea about potentially using fertilizers instead of burning the landscape off, and then analyze the dirt. So Bill's actually taking the samples and he's sending them away, and he's going to analyze for nutrients, and then potentially we can design a fertilizer that we could put on test area and see if that has a positive impact on grass reproduction for our sheep ranges in Region 6. So really cool and novel ideas, right? Out of the box, and let's think on a bigger picture of what we can and can't do, right? If we're having those impacts.
Yep. Wow.
So yeah, that's a province in a quick wrap.
Well, there's a lot going on, and I thought that maybe you'd taken some time away from the board at the WSF, but you're back. Or were you there the whole time?
So I'm still a director for WSF.
Yep.
So what I didn't decide to rerun for the board this year. So I would have, if I'd rerun, I've been on the board for 6 years.
Okay.
And your term limited to 9.
Yep.
And just with life, I just backed away and said, you know what, I'm not going to rerun, but I'll stay involved on all the committees. And basically what I do, with all the project stuff that I do in BC, is so relative to what I was doing for WSF. So in a sense, I won't sit on the board, which, the board meetings take potentially 3 or 4 days by the time you've got the travel in.
Yeah.
But if I can be involved in the committees and most of the conference calls, then I've still got my input. My knowledge is still there, as long as they still want me.
Yeah. I'm sure they do.
And then it gives a potentially somebody else new to be on the board, right? And it makes our bigger. It's the same as what I did in WSSBC. I backed off the board a few years ago to try and have new people run for the board, but still stay as support. There's a few of us that are getting long in the tooth on Wild Sheep Society of BC. There's David Heitzman. So I'm going to run through a list here. We're all past presidents. Yep. David Heitzman, Bill Pistoric, myself, Mike Southern, all past presidents, but we're still involved in one way or another.
Exactly.
And that was, I think that was big, because I got to take my hat off to Kyle Stelter. He's taken us to a place that me and Mike could always talk about, but just didn't have the time or the capacity to put it all together. And he's taken it that much level, and then his input, and then added it to another bar, and it's this full on.
Yeah.
I always say you create the monster and then you've got to feed it. Well, we've created the monster.
Yeah, he's doing a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, from my experience, like working with you, seems like, you're kind of in that coach and, mentorship kind of, you're doing a lot of that in BC, but you also seem to be a very key connection point to the WSF, networking there. And it's Mike and I are always pretty impressed with the amount of work that you're doing on both sides of the border. So yeah, it's cool.
Well, we've got the connectivity because Kyle was appointed to the board at WSF last year. So so we got 2 BC boys on the board, and like I said, I'm backing away a little bit, but I know Kyle's not going to disappoint on the WSF board. And I think the big thing for him was having us 4 long in the tooth goats roaming around to support him in the president's position. It was a major concern for him, but hopefully he's feeling the love.
Yeah, get a year. How long has he been doing that? 2 years now?
I think he's 2 years now.
Yeah. Get a year under. I mean, the first year was super successful too, and maybe we've got some events coming up, right? We've got the Northern.
Yeah, so moving into our money makers, my standard joke about the boys, you guys make the money, I just get to spend it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Please take that comment with a grain of salt. But yeah, I mean, pretty cool. The Northern event went live last weekend and sold out in 17 hours.
Nice.
And I think I want to say it's 400 people.
Yeah.
17 hours it sold out. I was just like, it's mind-boggling. So, great job, Robbie Englot for putting that together. Him and Corey Green's vision to have that Northern convention, and the success that it's become is amazing. It's unbelievable. So that's the guys that Northern Convention. That's where all that money for those Northern projects come from. So
nice. So I think that's the first event, and is that early spring or
February,
early winter?
What is it? February. I should know these dates, so I apologize, you guys. You can kick me in the butt later. But
there's a few events though. It's hard to keep, and they all seem to bunch up all at the same time.
Yeah, so that one's February. I want to say it's February 9th, 10th, somewhere around there. But I mean, we're missing the big one, the granddaddy of them all, the sheep show in January, right?
Yeah. So sheep show happens first, and I think that's January 18th to 20th, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly. So are you going to be down there for that?
I am hopefully going to be attending that one.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So I've got to wiggle that one in.
Yeah. Mike and I have talked about it. I don't know exactly what the plan is, but we're always happy to go down and check it out. We've been the last two and highly recommend it for anybody that wants to go down there.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, and I guess if we just back it up, we've got Campfire Conversations December 1st before
Yeah.
Christmas. I think we're going to be launching a new membership drive before Christmas. And I think also we're going to be announcing the gift of conservation. I can do a lot of conversing, but no, the gift of conservation is something that'll be unique coming out. So please look for that. That has some positive impacts for projects.
Yep.
So look for that coming out pretty quick. Like I say, our Campfire Conversations, that'll be pretty cool, the podcast.
Yep.
Like I say, sheep show.
Yep.
Northern Convention, and then our granddaddy show is Southern Convention in March. I think it's 13th, 14th this year.
Kamloops.
Kamloops. I believe you guys are going to be there doing a live podcast as well. So
Yeah. Well, actually, that'll be
Welcome.
our second live podcast of 2020.
nice.
I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast, but plans are in the works to have a live podcast from the Filson store on downtown Vancouver,
Very
January
cool.
30th.
Very
So
cool.
keep your ears peeled for that.
Might have to jump on the ferry.
Yeah, it should be a good time, and it's BHA is involved with helping us organize this, and also Mark Hall from the Hunter Conservationist,
Yeah.
and Dylan from Eat Wild. So it's going to be like a 3 podcasts getting together, and maybe we'll have guests as well, but we're kind of just organizing and putting things together right now. Chasing Food Club as well with Jenny.
Oh, cool.
She's involved, and maybe we can have some food and stuff there. I'm not too sure, but lots of ideas. But it looks like we have a date set, so we'll continue to push some information out there.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of stuff coming up then. So December, the campfire sessions.
Yeah. You guys need to invite one campfire to that little.
Yeah. Well, and Mike, obviously, with his involvement,
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got things in the works. But yeah, January we got Sheep Show, and then the live podcast from Filson. February, the Northern get together. March, the Southern and Kamloops.
Yeah, so Kamloops is shaping up to be. You guys will have to watch for it. I think it goes. I'm trying to remember when it goes on sale. I think it's mid-December. You're gonna want to get your tickets. I'm not gonna spoil a big announcement, but we've got a really cool international guest speaker coming this year.
Nice.
So people
Awesome.
can kind of guess who that may be and look for that. Pay attention. Change the format a little bit. The AGM is going to be Friday afternoon, so elections of board officers. If there's anybody out there that's listening that wants to come check it out, or they're thinking potentially of running for the board, send your intentions into Kyle and let him know. He's got a list there with some SMART goals and objectives for anybody that's interested becoming a director for WSSBC.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Friday afternoon. You need to be at the AGM to do that, and then there'll be a projects update and all that stuff. And then obviously the Friday night fun night with the backpack race and fun night, and again guest speakers.
Retired from backpack races. One's good enough, I think. I think everybody should do it once, but if you don't want to, it's I didn't expect the pack to be that heavy, actually. Like when you're full out running, it's just like it's pulling you back, and it's got momentum of its own. It's very hard to wrestle with that thing.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch.
It's definitely fun to watch.
I think it's more fun to watch.
Easier on the body.
But
we don't load our backpack race up that much. It's a relay race. So you've got to pack the backpack with tent, sleeping bag, and then you switch off to your partner, and and then but the key component that screws everybody up, you got to tie a set of sheep horns onto the backpack. And that usually
well, how many people have done that? because in real life, but we hear Gray almost every year. He says, everybody stand up, and then he does, okay, everyone that's killed the sheep, sit down or
Yeah.
whatever. And there's a lot of people that have never. So I could see that it would throw me through a loop.
It's okay. It throws the even the experienced sheep runners off. Because I watched a couple of years ago. I did it with Mike Southern, my hunting partner, and his son Mac. So Mike was the last, and he had to tie the sheep horns on, and there was something crooked in the backpack, and he couldn't get the sheep horns on. And kept falling off, and
Nice.
he just ended up throwing the whole works on the ground. And he goes, "That's it, I'm done." And then he packed it back up, and we finished the race. But
Yeah.
So it proves pretty formidable to not just people that haven't done it, but even those experienced sheep hunters. So
Yeah.
so it's usually a pretty fun event, that Friday night backpack race, and then we've got the long range shooting event, and
Mhm.
and then we've got all our main sponsors. I believe Sitka's on board again, Yeti, Stone Glacier. All these corporate sponsors. It's phenomenal, right, from where we've come and what we're doing. So
Yeah.
our Life Members Breakfast has grown from, same things like Wild Sheep Foundation experienced the growth. I think there was 100 people there last year. So
Nice.
look for that event to sell out. I think we're going to bump it up to 125 or something like that. So if you're coming and you're a Life member, make sure you get your tickets, or better yet, just join as a Life member if you're not, and attend the Life member breakfast that's sponsored by Yeti.
Yep.
And then, like I said, our main Saturday night convention, and that should be it's always fun. So we do our big drawing for the WSR raffle, so somebody gets to go on a sheep hunt.
Awesome.
And and then obviously we've been working on the political front and the finale as well, kind of going off of the topic of what we're doing in the province and events coming up. But we've been really working close with the Ministry of Ag to come up with a resolution between domestic sheep producers, the risk of disease transmission to our wild sheep population. So there's some really we've never come as close to actually mitigating the issue as where we're getting to right now. So
Nice.
we've got a couple of meetings coming up. We'll see where that ends up, but I'm really optimistic where that's going to. So
That's good news. Yeah. We'll have to do another touch base, and you can let us know how you make out with that one.
Well, hopefully, if everything goes as planned, maybe the convention may be an opportunity to touch up on that one. So
yeah.
And cool. The other final, I guess, big one that we've been pushing for a few years is the provincial sheep and goat biologist. And Bill Jex has been in that position since September. So, a good thing for conservation of our sheep and goats within the province. And, Bill's a really passionate guy, and he sits on the Wild Sheep Foundation Professional Resource Advisory Board along with Helen Swanshaw. So, BC's got some really good representation at WSF.
That's awesome.
So, that's pretty exciting for Bill. So we just got to make sure that government funds his position and maintains that, because it's going to be critical for our sheep and goat populations moving forward.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, there you go. There's a lot of projects and a lot of reasons why these two foundations are doing amazing work. So, I think we're fortunate to have you guys in BC. And I guess just encourage everybody to join if you're not a member already. And, if you want to come to these sheep counts or go to the conventions and check it out first, by all means.
Yeah.
But friendly group of people too. They just, it's welcome you with open arms. I can speak from experience on that one.
Yeah.
So, but we've chewed up over an hour here so far. So maybe we'll, leave things as far as touch base goes here. And what are your plans for the rest of the year, hunting wise?
Well, I do have a goat tag burning a hole, but an LEH, but I just don't think I'm going to get to use it. So apparently I've got a renovation to do. So
yeah,
that's going to jump into my, I think I'm going to be looking at spring bear very objectively this year. So I'm thinking excited about spring bear.
Cool. Awesome.
But I was just going to come back to your comment there about going to sheep show for your first time, for people that are worried about it, it is a little intimidating, and I think you can probably speak to it. But I remember the first time I went, but if you've got one person to walk around with, it's amazing, like you say, how accommodating, and you see all these names, and they're iconic in the industry, and they'll gladly talk to you, right?
So, they're all just normal people.
But was it pretty intimidating for you and Mike the first time?
I think the first time, but like given Mike and I went down together, I don't think it was too bad. And we also went down with Yankee too, Adam.
Yeah.
And we had a table, and we kind of had a good group there. So I feel like, to be honest, when you're going down in that type of setting, maybe it's a little easier.
Yeah.
But having gone down there, I mean, I would have no objections going with one other guy and just hanging out, and you'll meet a lot of people. All it takes is one time, and you all of a sudden have a big network of friends down there. So you don't really have a choice from that perspective. So yeah,
I always say it's like the mob. Once you're in, you're not getting out.
No, exactly. And I really like the backpack race for that, because it seems like everyone kind of like accumulates to that one area. And I found there's a lot of, you've already had dinner, you maybe had a few drinks by then. That's when everyone kind of loosens up a bit.
Yeah.
And you start networking, and the whole event's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. If you haven't been to Sheep Show, you definitely want to cross it off your list. It's, I always say it's one of the shows that you need to attend.
Yeah.
And like I say, in BC, our conventions in BC, or if you've never been, please join us, register. And like I say, if you're thinking about it, don't wait too long this year, because I think Southern's going to sell out as well.
Well, thanks for popping in.
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to share what's going on in the sheep world. And
no problem.
Like I said, you guys you're vested in it now, so you don't have much choice. You're not getting out.
Yeah. Well, I'm still yet to go on my first sheep hunt, but we're already stuck. Well, no, I did go on. I'm totally forgetting the whole history already, but we did the hike in. Mike doesn't like to call it a sheep hunt, but we did go hiking off the highway at one point, and I'm already hooked. Just the setting and the atmosphere and the views. Didn't see a sheep, but
the intent was there.
The intent was there, and I'm hooked already. So, but yeah, thanks for coming in again, and we'll do another one soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kelly. And it's unfortunate Mike's not here, but I guess he's as long as he's not getting chewed on by a polar bear, we'll be all right.
Yeah, indeed. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks so much. I guess it was a bit early for a beer this morning.
Yeah. Well, we're good with the coffees.
Yeah, the coffee at the spot.
Yeah.
This episode of Rookie Hunter was brought to you by the Wild Sheep Foundation, Sitka Gear, and North Arm Knives. As always, it is hosted by Kelly Mullner and myself, Mike Peterson. It is recorded, edited, and produced at Mountain Stream Audio Productions in beautiful Kelowna, British Columbia. Original music written by the one and only Kelly Mullner, with help from Graham Ord, Darcy Booth, and Chip Sleedermean. If you want to help us out, there's one thing you can do. You can go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And don't forget to subscribe. For more on the show, head over to our website, theRookieHunter.com.